Russia hit Turkey's Turkish ship in Ukraine.
Russia just made a fatal mistake. While Putin was shaking hands with Erdogan in Ashgabat, Russian drones were locking onto Turkish ships in Ukraine. On December 12th, Russia launched what it called a comprehensive retaliatory operation in the Black Sea. The targets? Ukraine's last two remaining ports. But when the smoke cleared, it became obvious this wasn't a military success. It was a diplomatic disaster. Russian missiles and drones struck 3 Turkish ships anchored in Ukrainian ports. One of them, the Jemk-T, owned by Turkish logistics company Jemk Shipping, was engulfed in flames. And the timing? Catastrophic. The attack happened at the exact moment Putin was sitting across from Erdogan, talking about cooperation and reducing tensions in the Black Sea. This isn't just irony. This is Putin placing Russia's economic jugular vein under Turkey's scalpel. Let's start with the facts. The Jemk-T wasn't carrying tanks or ammunition. It was carrying generators, vital equipment for Ukraine's collapsing electricity grid. The weapon used wasn't a blind artillery strike. It was a GPS-guided Garan-2 Shahed 136 drone. This technology means the coordinates were entered in advance. The target was deliberately selected hours before launch. In other words, while Putin was meeting with Erdogan in Ashgabat, Russian drones were already locked onto Turkish ships carrying humanitarian aid. Another piece of evidence? The ship's digital footprint. Jemk-T had turned off its AIS, automatic identification system, on December 11th to conceal its visit to the Ukrainian port. Russian intelligence tracked it anyway, detected it docking, and struck it at its most vulnerable moment. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Oleksiy Kuleba confirmed the attack directly targeted civilian logistics. But here's the smoking gun. Of all the ships in Ukrainian ports that day, the 3 damaged were all Turkish-owned. Statistically, that's nearly impossible unless it was deliberate. And it didn't stop there. On Saturday, December 13th, the Ukrainian Navy accused Russia of deliberately attacking another Turkish ship, the Viva, carrying sunflower oil to Egypt. 11 Turkish citizens were on board. The attack took place in open waters, within Ukraine's exclusive economic zone, outside the range of Ukraine's air defenses. This proves Friday's attack wasn't a coincidence. In diplomacy, there are no coincidences, only well-calculated timing. At the time of the attacks, Putin and Erdogan were in Ashgabat for the International Peace and Security Forum. The irony starts with the name of the summit itself. Erdogan was clearly telling Putin, don't attack Ukrainian ports and energy infrastructure. While he was saying that, smoke was rising from Turkish ships in Ukrainian ports. This was either an open attack on a strategic partnership or a miraculously coincidental event. The situation was so chaotic that Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was kept waiting.
40 minutes to meet Putin, only to be unexpectedly included in the Erdogan-Putin meeting. The photos from that meeting? Putin looked tense, distracted. Diplomatic protocol was thrown out the window. What Putin thought was a show of strength actually put Turkey in a very difficult position. And neither option in Turkey's dilemma will be pleasant for Putin. After the attack, Turkey's Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a message emphasizing the need to suspend attacks on energy and port infrastructure. In diplomatic language, this was the most polite way of saying, you are testing our patience. But here's what Putin forgot. The Black Sea isn't just water for Russia. It's Russia's economic lung, and the Turkish Straits, the Bosphorus and Dardanelles, are the windpipe of that lung. Turkey controls them, and Putin just set fire to Turkish ships. Let's clarify the magnitude of the money on the table. After losing the European market to sanctions, Russia transports 20 to 25% of its crude oil and petroleum products to Asia via the Black Sea. That means it must pass through the Turkish Straits. With the Baltic Sea frozen in winter, the Black Sea is Russia's only warm, open exit route. Millions of barrels of oil pass through every day. By striking Turkish ships, Putin took the risk of turning the route used by tankers carrying his own oil into a conflict zone. If the Black Sea becomes unsafe for civilian ships, Russia, which relies on this route for billions in oil exports, will suffer as much as Ukraine. And then there's the Shadow Fleet. This fleet of old tankers with complex ownership structures is how Russia circumvents the Western price cap. Until now, Turkey tolerated these environmental risks to manage regional tensions and maintain freedom of trade through the straits. But the attack on Turkish ships changes everything. When Russia becomes a threat to Turkish vessels, Turkey has the right, under international law and reciprocity principles, to consider Russian-linked ships passing through its territorial waters as a potential security risk. Will Turkey close the straits? Turkey doesn't need to declare war to do this. The Montreux Convention and local regulations grant Turkey control powers on the grounds of life, property, and environmental safety. Here's a potential scenario. Turkey could increase inspection protocols for passage through the straits, citing increased navigation risks following the Odessa attack. Turkey could demand comprehensive insurance guarantees from tankers. Shadow fleet vessels struggle to provide high-standard insurance. This would naturally decrease or halt transits. Longer inspections of suspicious or undocumented vessels could create a traffic jam effect, slowing Russia's logistics and increasing costs. The real nightmare for Russia isn't clashing with the Turkish Navy. It's getting stuck in the wheels of Turkish bureaucracy. One signature, one amendment to the Straits Convention, one decree. That's all it takes to wipe billions of dollars from Russia's budget every month. Sources: Lloyd's of London, Turkish Ministry of Transport, Financial Times. With this move, Russia is labeling the Black Sea as a high-risk zone. This threatens not only logistics to Ukraine, but also ships carrying oil and grain from Russia's own ports, like Novorossiysk, because the maritime ecosystem is interconnected. If civilian ships are burning in one part of the sea, alarm bells ring for all trade in that sea. If a ship owner won't send their vessel to Odessa, they'll think twice about sending it to a Russian port on the other side of the same sea. Insurance companies are now freezing policies or raising premiums to 5 to 10% of the ship's value, saying, if Russia is hitting Turkish-owned ships, no one is safe. By turning the Black Sea into an uninsurable zone, Russia hasn't just cut off aid to Ukraine, it's also scared away ships carrying oil and grain from its own ports. And here's the breaking point. After this attack, some of the region's largest logistics players, including companies like Jemk-T, are updating their risk analyses. The strongest scenario on the table? The Turkish merchant fleet gradually withdraws from the Ukrainian route and the risky northern Black Sea area. Russia believes it's isolated Ukraine by sea, strangling it with a blockade tactic. But it overlooks a massive reality. A significant portion of the tankers and logistics networks transporting Russian crude oil to world markets are controlled by Greek and Turkish-owned companies. When a Turkish ship is hit, it sets a deterrent precedent for other ship owners. The collapse of a logistics bridge, due to loss of confidence, has the potential to reduce Russia's export capacity and leave Moscow without foreign currency. This is a domino effect, and the first stone has fallen at the Odessa docks. Putin may have thought he was flexing his muscles by striking a ship belonging to the country whose leader he just shook hands with. But in reality, he placed the jugular vein of his own economy under Turkey's scalpel. Turkey no longer needs to fire a single bullet to stop Russia. A single signature is enough. The Turkish ship burning in Odessa may have been extinguished, but that fire has now spread to Ankara, and it's threatening to burn Russia's oil revenues. Ankara won't rush to extinguish this fire. Putin's promise of security has now turned into panic, a spiral of chaos. He can't even protect his own trade routes. Instead, he's striking ships of countries he considers allies. Logistical suffocation is no longer a theory. It's a valve in Turkey's hands. Moscow tried to force this valve open, but all it did was turn the power holding the valve against itself. When you see Russian tankers waiting in the Bosphorus in the coming days, remember, they're not just waiting their turn to pass. They're waiting in line for the Kremlin's economic collapse.
Because the missile fired that night may have sunk a ship, but it also wiped out Russia's future in the Black Sea. The war is no longer just on the front lines. It's in insurance policies, straight passage logs, and inside oil barrels. And on this front, Russia is defenseless. What do you think? Will Turkey tighten the screws on the Bosphorus? Or will Ankara find another way to make Russia pay? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe, hit the bell, because the Black Sea just became the most dangerous economic chessboard in the world. This is Global Power Report. We watch the collapse, so you can prepare for what's next.